It's the Daytona 500. Everybody wants to win it. It's the crown jewel of stock car racing. And
Mark Martin right there, the pole sitter for Sunday's Daytona 500, and welcome everyone to the inaugural edition of Race Week Preview here at ConcordMonitor.com. I'm Dave D'Onofrio, with me here, Gavin Faretra. Gavin, Dave. You excited for another season of NASCAR to get going?
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a great season. Daytona 500, nothing like getting the Super Bowl. We just finished up with the Super Bowl, and now we have the Super Bowl in NASCAR to kick off the season. So can't get more excited about something like that, and I'm looking forward to Sunday.
Let's get right into Sunday. I mean, what are you looking for here? What should people be expecting?
I think you should be expecting a great race. I mean, it always is a great race, and the nice thing about the Daytona 500 is that you can pretty much expect anything to happen. It's one of those races that is very much unlike any of the others that we watch during the year. Guys come from the back of the pack. We have wrecks. There's a lot of excitement, and pretty much anybody can win that race.
One thing I think I'll be watching is the bumping and the bump drafting that'll be going on. NASCAR announced a few weeks ago it's planning on relaxing the rules, letting these guys get into it a little more, letting the personalities come out. And I think what you might see on Sunday is a little more contact, a little more action early in the race. I mean, lately we've seen these restrictor plate races get a little boring at the beginning. Maybe about 100 miles to go, the guys start really amping it up. After that last pit stop, guys get a little more aggressive. But I think if they're allowed to, they'll go after it a little bit more on Sunday.
Absolutely, I think they will. With most of these races that we see guys, like you said, in the middle of the race, kind of just find a spot and get a comfort zone and go into that. I don't think we're going to see that now. I think we're going to see guys try to get those bonus points, try to lead the most laps, and I think that's the kind of race we're going to see on Sunday.
Another thing to watch, starting point. Obviously, Mark Martin's on the pole, as we mentioned. Dale Earnhardt Jr. Right off to his side, his Hendrick Motorsports teammate. 54% of races at Daytona have been won from the top 5, 79% from the top 10, and only 6% from 21st or worst. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys at the front play it out. If they're more conservative at the beginning, maybe we'll see some action at the back. One thing to always worry about here is the big one, and I think that's why the guys who are at the back at the beginning really have a hard time getting to the front.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just look at this. 2 of the last 3 winners have come from the back of the pack. Matt Kenseth and Kevin Harvick both starting deep in the pack. I believe Ryan Newman in 2008 won from 7th spot, but that's a rarity in the last couple of years. So anything can happen. It doesn't matter where you're starting off. I think none of these guys will be upset with where they're starting off. They just be patient and probably try to work their way up. Quicker the better.
You talk about Newman. As we move on to guys who might be guys to watch, Newman, a teammate of Tony Stewart here. Stewart's had a lot of success at Daytona. He's someone to watch, I think. Mark Martin, obviously someone to watch. Dale Earnhardt Jr. Jimmy Johnson, I think it will be interesting because he's in his backup car. But the thing I'm going to watch most is the relationship of teammates. You have Martin Truex and David Rudiman, new teammates. Juan Pablo Montoya and Jamie McMurray, new teammates. And you have the Roush dynamic. I know you're a guy who follows the Roush team pretty closely. What do you expect from them this year in this race?
Well, I think they have a big hill to climb after last year. A very down year for them considering what they did the year before. So I think you're going to look for guys like Carl Edwards and the rest of that team to kind of step it up in the beginning, try to make some noise in the Daytona 500. There's no bigger spot to make. Halfway through the year, we're still talking about the Daytona 500, who won. So that is very important for them to get off to a good start, and I think that you'll look for that on Sunday.
Who are a couple of guys maybe if you get away from the race for a minute on Sunday, that when you see the ticker across the screen, who are a couple of guys you'll be watching for?
Well, first guy that jumps out at me is Mark Martin. After last year, I think he's a 50-year-old guy. It doesn't matter. After last year, I think he still has that fire burning in him because he didn't win the championship. All year, it looked like to be the guy that was going to finally get that championship. He didn't get it. So I think he's going to be one guy to watch. And his teammate, Dale Earnhardt Jr., I think this is it for him. He needs to make a statement this year. If he doesn't do it this year, I don't know if it's ever going to happen for him.
To be honest, I'm not sure it ever will. But if he wins Sunday, which he's won this race before, so yes, he could start making that statement this week. 2 more guys I might be watching for are the Richard Petty Motorsports teammates of Casey Kane and Elliott Sadler. Very quietly, especially in Sadler's case, these are 2 guys who at Daytona in the last 10 races have 2 out of the top 8 average finishes. So maybe they're a little bit under the radar here. Any other guys you see as maybe that have slipped under the radar in these speed weeks?
Well, you know, you don't want to say under the radar. I believe Kevin Harvick won last week, but he's another guy that kind of jumps out at me as needing to kind of make a statement and reestablish himself as one of the top drivers. I think we still put him probably in the top 10 as name-wise, as a guy that we look to. But after last year, a down year for him, missed the chase, he needs to get himself back into what he does best, and that's drive a good race car.
Yeah, the guy I'm looking at is another former winner at this track, and that's Matt Kenseth. Last year, you know, he won the Daytona 500. He got all the accolades that go along with that, but people always will remember it as a rain-shortened race.
Yeah.
Maybe he lucked into it a little bit. He's a good enough driver, and that's a good enough team to really look at this race as their chance to validate that. And he had a decent week in speed weeks, decent performance in the dual race on Thursday, and I think he's a guy, as well as his Roush teammates will, who are going to come out this year with something to prove, especially after that 17 team missed the chase a season ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Kenseth's always one of those guys that just kind of floats along, and you don't hear anything from him. And then you look, and he's fifth in the standings.
Sure.
So he's just one of those guys that needs to kind of get those wins, maybe be a little bit more aggressive. You know, don't move away from what he does best. He's a consistent top 10 guy. Last year was a little bit of a down year for him, but he needs to just kind of amp it up a little bit more, and what better place to do that than Daytona?
Yeah, and I think he's a guy who will be looking for results. Maybe last year was kind of that kick in the pants that he was looking for.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's put money where our mouths are, and let's move on to our fantasy picks. I'm going to go with Kurt Busch. You look at a guy, when he was Ryan Newman's teammate in 2008, he was right there pushing him to the finish without doing anything crazy. I think that's what you need at Daytona. You need a guy who's going to drive that first 490 miles with the intent of staying near the front but not getting himself out of contention. And I think Kurt Busch is the guy who's going to do that. He may win the thing, but I think at the very least you can come to expect a top 10 from him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going with another guy that, and for basically the same reasons that you just said, Denny Hamlin. He was red hot at the end of last year, competed very well in the chase, kind of got himself out of it at the beginning, but really moved himself forward toward the end there. And you know, had he done a little bit better in the first couple of races, it might have been him celebrating a championship, dethroning Jimmy Johnson. So, and for the same reason that you just said, you need to go out and, like you said before, be aggressive. Maybe the new rules changes will help Denny Hamlin, because he's the type of guy that, like Kyle Busch, likes to try to work his way to the front. He doesn't like being a follower. He's a leader.
Yeah, we mentioned the team dynamic before, and he's certainly got some good teammates. Don't know how much help Joey Logano is going to be, probably more than last year when he was a rookie. I think Kyle Busch and Hamlin will lean on him maybe a little bit more, but I think Hamlin's a guy with a lot of potential this year who could, as you said, start things off on the right foot this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get the whole Kyle Busch factor in there, and he's a guy that, like Hamlin, likes to lead every lap. So while they are teammates, this is the Daytona 500, and anything goes.
Now our predictions for the race itself. I'm going to go with Tony Stewart, and here's why. Here's some numbers. His average finish over the last 10 races at Daytona, 12.7. He has 7 top 10s in the last 10 races. He's won 3 times at Daytona since 2005, including last July's race at the track, and he's led 516 laps there over the last 10 races. Nobody else has led more than 235. This is a chance for Stewart to put the cherry on top of his career. He's got 2 titles. He's a consistent driver. He's now proving himself as an owner, but this is the one thing he hasn't done. He's won the Brickyard. He's won dozens of tracks across his career, whether it's in open wheel or in stock car. Never won the Daytona 500. I think that changes on Sunday.
I can't dispute that. Tony Stewart as good a pick as any. I have to go with Mark Martin, and while I could throw a million statistics at you, I think it's just the fact that, like I said before, he's got the fire burning in him. He wants to win this race, make a statement, and say, you know what, guys, last year was great. I'm going to be even better this year, and you're going to have to follow me right from the get-go, because I'm going to take this race, and I'm going to move forward.
And as we said before, the importance of teammates, both those guys. Newman, I think you can expect to be at the front to help Stewart. And, I mean, Martin starts with Junior alongside, with Jimmy Johnson in the mix, obviously. Jeff Gordon's won this race several times, so he's going to have plenty of help. Stewart's going to have plenty of help. And that sets up for an exciting race. Hopefully it plays out that way. We'll be back next week. We're planning to do this every week here at the Live from Loudon blog on ConcordMonitor.com. For Gavin Faretra, I'm Dave D'Onofrio. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Dave.